Good evening and welcome to the Buck Stops Here. I'm Vishnu Shom reporting live from Kathmandu, a city which has been devastated by the earthquake. I'm joined by a team of NDTV reporters who will be covering every facet of the story. Well, the situation is not getting better anytime soon over here. There are still dozens of bodies which are being brought out of the rubble. India's effort in these rescue and relief operations is incredible. What India has done in terms of reaching out to the people of Nepal is absolutely unprecedented. We'll tell you more about the extent of the India involvement in this hour of need of the people of Nepal. We'll also tell you the situation on the ground, what needs to be done now. And I can also tell you that it's difficult for people wanting to get out of Kathmandu at this stage. The Indian Air Force continues to operate flights, but there are hundreds and hundreds of people waiting. And just getting into Kathmandu for civilian flights is proving to be very difficult. Flights are hovering overhead and then they are being diverted because the airport can only take so many aircraft. That's the situation right now. I'm also going to go across at this stage to my colleagues Ketaki Angre and Neha Masi.
I'm Neha Masi and I travelled to a village high up in the mountains in the Dharding district to find an island of destruction in the midst of a valley.
We're here in Kathmandu at the base of the iconic Dharahara Tower that has now reduced to rubble. Many people have lost their lives here, and in fact that's the scene not only in Kathmandu but across the valley as well. And the worry is really whether rescue efforts will be pitched up in time to make sure people who have any chance of survival can be pulled out of the rubble. We travelled to the old city area as well, to Bhaktpur, where we saw scenes of devastation in the residential area where entire homes have collapsed and there is no way to reach even high-tech equipment to those areas. We'll bring you all of those reports a little later.
Well, let's bring you Neha Masi's report first. A report on a part of Nepal not too far away from Kathmandu which has been completely, totally destroyed. Villages completely gone. This is her report.
While the devastation in Kathmandu has been extensively reported, the situation in villages outside also dire. We travelled to Dharding and bring to you the first ground report from that district, one of the 5 worst affected. From a village high up in the mountains which has been reduced to a rubble, posing the next big challenge for the government.
A long winding path up the mountain leads to Kanisi village in Dharding district, the scene of some of the worst destruction in Nepal now. Of the 30 houses in the village, only 2 remain. The others have collapsed completely, leaving the villagers to take shelter in these tents. The clock has stopped at 1:45 on a cracked wall, the only one standing in this house.
सब डैमेज हो चुका है, इसलिए
कुछ
नहीं बचा.
Recounting the horror is not easy for 65-year-old Ram Pyari, whose mother was witness to the last quake in the 30s.
कुछ नहीं है, सब हमें तो बोलता है ना वो क्या बोलता है, सड़क पे आ गए अब, सड़क तो नहीं है, चौर पर आ गए.
The devastation by the killer quake is not limited to Kathmandu alone, but also felt acutely in villages, small villages like Ganise, which dot the entire valley, but are in the interiors. And that's also the challenge before the government on how to reach these citizens and relief to them as they wait and hope. With camera person Rajesh Gupta, Neha Masi for NDTV.
For tourists across the world, Bhaktpur was a World UNESCO Heritage Site. But behind one of the most visited places in Nepal plays out a very different reality today. Residents are struggling to come to terms with what's left of their homes, and they still find some of their family members trapped inside. In fact, one 15-year-old girl was pulled out of the rubble after spending 16 hours trapped underneath it. But she may be among a lucky few. The rubble is all around, and with no equipment reaching those sites, people are making do with just their hands to try and rescue or even recover the bodies of loved ones. And the chances of now finding any survivors is almost next to nothing. He returns each day to clear the rubble, a routine 45-year-old Narayan has been following, looking for his sister. Today, he finally found her buried under the rubble, the fifth person he's lost to the quake. But the tears have dried up, desperation fast taking its place.
प्रशासन को खबर किया, अभी आएगा बोल रहा है, अभी भी आएगा, फोन किया, नहीं आया.
आपने कहा दो बच्चे भी यहाँ पर दबे हुए हैं, कहाँ पर?
और बुढ़े आदमी है, उधर ऊपर है और दो उधर है.
The exact extent of the damage in Golmani area of Bhaktpur is still coming to light. This is the residential area. Many people have fled their homes. Many of them were injured, had to be pulled out of the rubble as well. In fact, these overhead wires hanging dangerously low. And even then, some still willing to risk making a trip home to recover anything they can. But not without the emotional burden. इतनी परिस्थिति खराब है कि अंदर जाना खतरे से खाली नहीं.
खतरा तो है, बहुत खतरा है. यहाँ से तो जाना है, ऊपर नहीं जा सकता है.
अच्छा, तो क्या सामान लेने आए हैं?
वो थाल, खाना खाने के लिए थाल लेने आए हैं.
बहुत ज़्यादातर लोग थेफ्ट हो रहा है इधर. वो सुन के हमने विचार किया कि अपने सामान, जो बहुमूल्य सामान हो गए घर में, वो निकालने के लिए अभी हमें.
But rescue work in these narrow, dilapidated bylanes is easier said than done.
Yes, it is very hard for us to rescue. We don't get enough time. The earthquake is coming repeatedly. It is coming repeatedly, and when it will stop, we don't know. And we also have rescued. And it is also raining in the night. Also, it is, which makes us very hard to rescue. Bhaktapur city, the roads are very small, narrow, and the excavator couldn't pass in that narrow roads.
Hope is fading, especially given that it's been nearly 48 hours since the earthquake shook Nepal. And each and every house here, each and every cavity here was a house. In fact, a 4-storied house. Many found it difficult because they must have had hardly any time to even try and attempt an escape. In Bhaktapur, with camera persons Azam Siddiqui and Habib Ali, Keith Kiangre for NDTV.
Inasmuch as the work of reporters so far in Nepal has been largely focused on Kathmandu and the extent of the devastation in these areas, and the full magnitude of the tragedy is only slowly becoming clear. What about the situation in other parts of Nepal? What about the situations in villages outside? Is it as bad? What are the numbers of casualties? These are questions that are not unanswered, completely unanswered at this stage. Siddharth Pandey travelled to two of the worst affected areas outside Kathmandu for these reports.
यहाँ पर जब अर्थक्वेक हुआ उस टाइम ये बच्चे इधर सो रहा था, दोनों बच्चे सो रहा था, माँ उधर था. जब हमने वो निकालने के टाइम में, ये निकालने टाइम में ऐसा नहीं था, ये तो बाद में ये गिर गया.
और ये 2 मंजिला घर है, because ये सीढ़ी, we can see the ladder going up, the steps going up. In fact, so this was a 2-story structure. The top half is completely gone.
This is the ground
floor. We are standing in the filled-in ground level now, filled in completely with debris. And so everyone basically came together to rescue, and it's a miracle that both children इनको हॉस्पिटल भी ले गए.
हॉस्पिटल ले गए. ये बेहोश था, ये छोटा बच्चा, ये थोड़ा घबराया था, माँ भी थोड़ा घबराया था. हॉस्पिटल ले गए तो सकुशल रह गए. हॉस्पिटल से थोड़ी देर में, 1.5 घंटे के बाद में वापस ले गए.
So indeed a miracle there. Both children now well, but you can see both their parents now working out there in the field just below us, and what they are doing is they're now trying to erect a temporary structure because everyone, as I said, has been just living out under the open sky, and they are now trying to put together whatever salvage wood they can find to try and now erect a temporary structure to try and give some kind of shelter. for the past 2 to 3 nights, it's been raining in Nepal, in the Kathmandu valley. The temperatures plummet, and obviously it's not the best situation for anyone, least alone little kids. So everyone now trying to basically set up some kind of a shelter. So in fact, everyone perhaps praying for miracle. Many places right now. In fact, I think सबसे पहले यहाँ और कोई अभी आया, अधिकारी कोई आया, कोई मदद पहुँची आपको?
नहीं, कोई भी नहीं. Just
कोई मीडिया कर्मी पहुँच?
Nobody.
So in fact, in many places, they've had to fend for themselves. And but this particular case is a miracle case, and many people perhaps still hoping that in many cases where there's still debris, perhaps large chunks of concrete, there could be people still trapped there, and now the entire focus to try and make sure that those people can be rescued. This, of course, is the story of Koirala village, similar to the situation in many other villages here in Kathmandu. आपका जो है पूरा ये घर जो है मैं देख रहा हूँ ये नष्ट हो गया है भूकंप में हुआ इसको बनाने में कितना आपका लागत लगेगा?
लगे 2-3 लाख तो लगेगा मजदूरी ये सब देने में उतना लगेगा।
आप करते क्या आप यहाँ पर?
खेती।
और कितना कुछ बनता है आपका उसमें?
ज्यादा नहीं बचता है, बच्चे को खिला पिला के वही महीने में 3-4 हजार
3-4 हजार आपका महीने में बनता है। और बट करीबन ऑलमोस्ट 2 से 2.5 लाख आपका इसमें लगेगा मरम्मत में इसके घर का। और ये आप ही का घर नहीं बल्कि आपके पिता का भी घर नीचे है। एंड इफ यू कैन जस्ट सी दैट इवन हर फादर्स हाउस व्हिच इज जस्ट बिलो, इवन दैट्स सफर्ड स्ट्रक्चरल डैमेज। ये अभी घर जो है काफी दरारें हैं, सुरक्षित है इसमें रहने के लिए?
नहीं है।
तो कहाँ रह रहे हो आप लोग?
सब लोग बाहर सो रहे हैं, ऐसा तिरपाल लगा।
As the full extent of this disaster slowly becomes clear, and as I've been mentioning, it could take several weeks, if not months, there is one country that stands out in reaching out to the people of Nepal in this hour of their need, and that country is India. There are several countries from around the world who are sending in assistance. I was on a flight into Kathmandu today with some German specialists and some British specialists as well. But the quantity of assistance and the quality of assistance being brought in by India is at another level altogether. From mobile hospitals to evacuation services to the National Disaster Relief Force, which has been operating over here with heavy equipment and state-of-the-art equipment. The quality of the assistance, the manpower that India has brought into Nepal in this hour of their need has to be seen to be believed.